Let's put all this together and create a plan for a confrontation. You may have already thought about a plan for a fire or a plan for an earthquake. Maybe even went through training in that through school. We did when we were in elementary school. But when's the last time you made a plan for if there's going to be a fight? So there's a couple of things I want to bring up. First of all, we've talked about this numerous times. Plan A is always your awareness. Be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of who's around you. If you're walking down the street and you notice a bunch of shady characters, feel free, cross the street, go to the other side. If you can avoid the confrontation, that's the best way to go. Plan B, what if there is a confrontation? We really want to try to de-escalate it. Let's talk a little bit about being aggressive versus being assertive. There was a story in the news a long time ago. It was a football player who was already a stick of dynamite just waiting for the fuse to be lit. He was hanging out at a club, he was dancing, and somebody bumped into him and spilled a drink on him. Well, instead of the guy apologizing, it turned into an alpha on alpha screaming match. It turned into an ego fight. The guy who spilt the drink ends up leaving the bar with his buddy. This football player gets his friend, gets in their car, drives down the street, pulls up right next to, just so happens to be the guy that spilt the drink on him. And he reaches down, grabs a gun, pulls the trigger, shoots both guys that were in the car. Did that need to happen? No. The person that spilt the drink reacted aggressively instead of assertively. Now, you don't want to cower and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spill a drink all over you, because that might set some personality types off as well. But instead, if you were more assertive and you were like, wow, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to spill the drink on you, can I buy you a new drink? So I'm trying to take command of the situation and make amends for even a wrong that I might not have committed. Make the apology anyway, because you don't know if this guy's got a gun. You don't want it to turn into an ego battle and then you just slap the killer. Even if it's not your fault, you apologize for it anyhow, that's better than getting into a confrontation. So then let's talk about how are you going to recognize when this confrontation is coming on. There's a couple of clear indicators that somebody intends you bodily harm. Now, if we're talking about things like a fire, there's a clear indication that there's a fire happening. Usually there's an alarm, beep, beep, beep. Usually there's some kind of smoke. Earthquake, things are shaking around and you kind of know things aren't quite right. And that's an indicator that you need to do something about that emergency. Now, with humans, it can be a little bit more subtle, but genetically, we are designed to be able to read this subtle body language. You just need to learn how to trust your intuition on these things. Now, when it comes down to you are assaulting a guy and a police officer showing up afterwards, you're going to have a string of events linked together, not just one thing. For instance, if you're looking at the guy's pocket, you see a knife and the hand disappears and you headbutt the guy and turn the guy's face into hamburger, the cop's going to show up and go, what's going on? Well, he had a knife. Well, was he also being angry with you? Was he also threatening you? Or did you just assault the guy for no reason? Let's take a look at a couple of indicators that can let you know, if you're looking for them, that there's a possible threat. We want to be looking at the eyes, the hands, and the waist. These are all things that can really give me an idea, even without the person speaking, of what it is that they're doing. Number one being the eyes. Are they staring at me? And what kind of stare is it? They're the windows to the soul, right? Right. You know, if they're giving you that mad dog stare, you can kind of see that, right? They're a little bit squinty. Maybe you can see a little bit of that anger. Nowadays, we all have to wear masks everywhere we go. You go into Walmart and they say hi. You can see their smile even behind their mask because you can see that smile in their eyes. It's the same thing, you know, especially if you've ever seen anybody angry, you can see that anger in their eyes. And so that's something that you can immediately recognize. Now, a couple things I can do. I don't know if they're staring at me. Maybe they're staring at somebody behind me. I can ask them, hey, hi, how you doing? Be a little bit assertive with it. Don't be aggressive. I can get up and move. And while if they're looking at me when I move, I'm pretty sure they're looking at me, not something else. Yeah, one of the keys is you want to think about, are you doing that to them too? Are you giving them the death stare? And it might be by accident. You might not be upset. It might just be the way your face normally rests. If you can recognize that and fix that and change it to a smile. Now, he mentioned this mind-engaging question. Excuse me, do I know you? Now, when the guy is getting angry, he's going into his lizard brain. We want to try to de-escalate the situation and make him go to his human brain. So a simple question like, do I know you? That can get him talking, which takes some cognitive function to be able to speak. If the eyes are the windows to the soul, the hands are the guide to the intent. What are the hands doing? Are they reaching for something? If they're reaching for something, it's probably nothing good. Are they pumping their hands? Maybe they're breathing heavy. These are signs that adrenaline has been dumped into their system. Why do you think they've got adrenaline in their system? Are they preparing themselves to fight right now? These, again, are things that can lead you to believe that there's a potential attack coming on. We mentioned one mind-engaging question earlier of, do I know you? You could follow up again with, hey, is there something I can help you with? The whole time you want to make sure you keep your hands up like this and not as a fist. You want to seem like you're being nice, not being confrontational. If you've asked a couple of these mind-engaging questions and they're not answering, odds are they're not thinking about talking to you, they're thinking about hitting you. So we've just strung together 2 indicators for the police officer. He's looking at me funny, he's clenching his hands, and he's breathing. So also good to recognize if you're doing that, this is our B of our ABCs is breathing. If I am getting into a confrontation, maybe I'm not the one starting it, but if he's getting aggressive toward me, I need to make sure that I'm not showing those same signs, just like we were talking about with the eyes. So just be aware if I'm seeing him doing those signs that I am not also showing those signs. The next thing we talk about is the waist. It's very easy to see, especially from a distance. I don't have to look down too far, but sometimes you'll see in a pocket that little silver clip of a knife that's hanging on the outside of the pocket. You might see something that's attached to their belt. Maybe they're wearing a really bulky jacket and you can't see what's on their waist. All important things to be aware of so that if his hand does disappear towards something or inside that jacket, that you know that there's a potential hazard that's going to be coming out. Now, at the same time, you want to recognize that in yourself. Like, I carry a knife on me most times, and I realize people might be looking there and seeing that knife. So what am I doing with my hands? Am I hiding my hands in my pocket? That's a bad idea, because he's probably thinking I'm going for a knife. I should put my hands in front of me in a non-confrontational way. Now, in this non-confrontational way, I can really easy defend myself. I can really easy strike while I'm also in a position of saying, hey, stop. If we're paying attention to their hands and waist and eyes, we need to be paying attention to all that. I want to be presenting the least amount of threat as possible, especially if this guy is aggressing toward me. I want to not show that I'm any kind of a threat. Talking with my hands out in front of me, non-aggressive. This at least is keeping my hands moving. And if he throws a punch or I need to throw a punch, it's a little more hidden. If I'm ever dealing with a police officer and I need to, reach for my wallet to show my ID, or I got to get my insurance and registration out of my glove box, I'm very clear with the officer of what it is that I'm doing, and I allow him to see my hands. You don't want to do anything that's going to be making them think that you're reaching for a weapon. If I'm scanning the eyes, the hands, and the waist, I want to make sure that I'm doing that from a distance. I can see all of that in one glance. If he gets up too close to me, now I'm doing this whole looking him up and down, trying to see everything. That looks very suspicious, and I don't want to look suspicious. I'm trying to de-escalate this so it doesn't turn into a confrontation. But now let's say from that distance, I've recognized a couple of things, like he's looking at me funny, his hands are pumping, and he's breathing hard, and I'm going, man, this guy's upset at me. Now he changes his position. He's either coming towards me or he's following me. Well, at this point, I'm going to have to think about companion. Do I have somebody with me that I can go stand next to that can help me fight this guy? Do I have somebody with me that I need to protect and I need to make sure they know that we need to get out of there? Is there somebody of authority like a bouncer or a teacher or somebody that I can go to that maybe if I'm with that person, I won't be attacked? Now, there's a couple of things you can do, like, for instance, crossing the street or moving to a different side of the room that can really clearly help you realize, is the guy coming towards you, or is he just upset and walking outside and you were standing in front of the door? But now we've linked together a couple of different things. We've watched his eyes and his hands and his waist. He started approaching us. I noticed he had a knife. His hand disappeared, and I attacked. Now you can start seeing if a cop is interviewing you afterwards that you put together a pretty clear series of ideas that you did feel threatened and you were legally allowed to use physical force to stop that imminent threat. If the guy's approaching you, make sure you keep your eyes on him and look around for other friends he might have. One of the keys is to not let him get too close. A lot of times when you see two guys getting into this ego battle, you do what I like to call the monkey dance. They get up nose to nose and they're pushing their chest out and they're trying to be tall and looks like two monkeys fighting in the jungle, right? If they're that close to you, you're not going to be able to react when they get ready to swing. So a couple of things. First of all, don't let them get to within 6 feet. I think now with COVID, that 6 foot distance is maybe even more socially acceptable.
And most people at this point are getting pretty good at judging what 6 feet is.
And if you apologize ahead of time and say, hey, I'm sorry, can you keep your 6 foot distance? And you ask them another mind engaging question. Again, is there something I can help you with? We're trying to get them to move into their civilized brain so we can have a civilized conversation and come up with a civilized solution.
If we keep in mind that the average length of an arm is about 2 to 3 feet, I want to be keeping in mind the length of my arm and the length of his arm. We shouldn't be that close.
And when they're at that 6 foot mark or approaching that 6 foot mark, I now want to make sure that I change my posture a little bit. I still don't want to close my hands because as soon as I close my hands into fists, that's confrontational. That means I'm ready to fight and that's probably going to spark that fight off. But I can change my stance to moving 1 foot back. It's what we call the fighter's triangle, and you'll actually notice this as a threat indicator. When two people are standing in front of each other, they're just having a normal conversation. They're usually standing parallel to each other with their feet even. It looks like a very friendly conversation. But at the point where somebody becomes confrontational, they realize in order to have power, 1 foot has to be in front of the other. So they'll automatically take this stance that looks like a triangle if you draw lines between their feet. The other triangle you can look at in the fighter's triangle is if they're leaning forward at you. Now you can see there's a triangle that leads out from their foot and then up to their head. They're encroaching on your personal space. That might be with their head, that might be with their hands by pointing and poking or by shoving. This is a clear attack indicator that lets you know that you need to be defending yourself right now. And as we mentioned before, recognize in yourself, are you doing these things? If you notice yourself leaning forward to the guy, recognize that and back off a little bit and take on a more friendly gesture. If you're talking with your hands, make sure you're talking in a nonchalant way, not in a way like this that's going to end up spiking it into a fight that you really don't want. Especially now that they've closed that 6 foot range, we definitely want to keep an eye on their hands and their waist. There are certain things that they might do that indicates they're getting ready to attack, like that hand disappearing is a pretty good indicator they're going to probably stab you with something. Another common thing that you'll see a lot is what's called the felony yawn or the felony glance. A lot of times before people get ready to punch, they do this little look around like is anybody watching, and then they punch you from out of nowhere. They don't even set it up. Sometimes they know that, if I am standing still and I go to throw a punch, you're going to see that movement. So they'll do this little yawn where they look around and yawn at the same time, and then that punch comes out of nowhere and it hits you. So you want to be careful of these things at close range. The sudden movement from them, if you've recognized a couple of these things, it's go time. If they're already that close, you now have to be able to defend yourself.
Once you've identified a threat, it's time to implement your plan on how to eliminate that threat. And hopefully you've thought about the plan ahead of time, because having to think about a plan right now can be really difficult under stress.
So we've given you some tools to use. Let's put together a little scenario and show you how we can utilize these tools. So in this scenario, let's pretend for a second that we're at the grocery store. Now, of course, we're trying to use our awareness to avoid, and maybe we've seen this guy that's acting kind of funny. Hopefully, I would just change aisles and not even have to deal with the guy. But I did recognize that he might be a threat to me, and later on, I see him in the same aisle as me, and he's looking directly at me, and he's coming at me. He's giving me a couple of these attack indicators. So I'm going to go into my zone of assessment. Remember A, B, C. Your awareness, your breathing, and your companion. In my awareness, here's my 3 zones of assessment. Myself. First of all, am I in a stance that's going to help defend myself? Do I have my hands in a defensive or an aggressive position?
Should be non-threatening.
What tools do I have on me? First of all, do I have my cell phone on me so I can call for help? Do I maybe carry something like pepper spray or a stun gun or taser that I can use to defend myself in this situation? Once I've assessed what's on me, I'm even thinking about my breathing. Am I breathing correctly, or am I panting like a dog right now, which means adrenaline is in my system and I need to slow down my breathing so I can think straight? There's zone 1. I then real quick go to zone 2. This is all an assessment you're going to do in a matter of milliseconds. Zone 2, what's around me? I've got a shopping cart around me I can put between me and them. I've got these aisles. I might be able to get to the other side and he can't get to me anymore. My other points of zone 2, my companion. Do I have a security guard? A camera is an awesome companion. If you can at least get the assault on camera showing that they're being aggressive, that could help you if you need to use physical force in self-defense. Do you have a child you have to worry about getting out of the store, or maybe a significant other that can step in and help you out if you need to? Then I also think about my zone 3. Where's the exits from this building? And once I get out of the building, where's my car? Once I've made that clear, quick assessment of what's on me, what's around me, what's outside of around me, now I'm ready to implement my plan.